Hey, TaxBots. I'm Luke Munich from the Legal Aid of Southeast and Central Ohio, and I'm here with Kathy Hoover, staff attorney for the Low Income Taxpayer Clinic, and Melissa Skilleter, managing attorney for Intake and Tax at Legal Aid of Southeast and Central Ohio. Today, we're discussing the Form W-4 and how to fill it in. Feel free to comment below, and we will answer what we can. To start us off, Kathy, what is a W-4?
Yeah, so a W-4 form tells your employer how much federal tax you'd like them withhold from your paychecks each pay period. Out whenever you start a new job, have a change in family status, or if you just want to make some changes. This is an example of a blank form for 2022, but it hasn't really changed much since then. You can get one of these forms from your employer or at irs.gov. You should carefully read the instructions and fill out all sections that are applicable to you. We'll go over some important areas of this form. So at the very top is the personal information section. You'll want to make sure you print clearly and check the correct filing status for your situation. Step two is for the multiple jobs or if your spouse works. This is the most important section of this form. Failure to fill this form out correctly can cause you to owe taxes at the end of the year. This section may seem like there's not a lot to do, so it's very easy to overlook. Your employer will hold taxes based on your pay for this job only, because that's the only job that they know that you have. So if you have two jobs or a spouse that also works, then you need to use this section to let your employer know to withhold more taxes. There's a small checkbox under number C over to the right about halfway down that needs to be checked if you worked more than one job at a time or if you have a spouse that works. And when I say when you work more than one job at a time, that's if you have them at the same time. So not if you switch jobs in the middle of the year and you only have one job each time. It's when you have either two part-time jobs or full-time on a part-time job at the same time, or if both you and your spouse are both working all year. We're going to go through a few examples of why this box works and why it's important. So for this first section, this is for a single filer with just one job and no dependents. They make about $11,000 this year in this particular situation. They do not check that box, but as you see, they have no taxes withheld, but they're not going to owe anything at the end of the year either because their income is under the amount of the standard deduction. However, if that same single person now has two jobs and make approximately the same amount at each job, if they still don't check that box on either job, they're going to have no tax withheld at all, which will cost them at the end of this particular year to owe about $900 since they had no withholdings. However, if that same filer with the two jobs making $11,000 at each job checks those boxes on their forms, they will have some tax withheld, which means at the end of the year, instead of owing that $900, they're going to get a small balance or a small refund back. Now for married people, so if you're married filing jointly and each of the spouses only have one job and they each make about 11,000, in this particular case, they don't check that form, which is okay. They have no tax withheld, but that's because they won't owe either because their income is still under that standard deduction amount for a married joint filer. If that same couple though has higher paying jobs and they're each making approximately $22,000 each year, if they don't check that box, they're still going to have no taxes withheld because their employer does not know that their spouse is working. So at the end of the year, this couple is going to owe about $1,800 because they had no tax withheld. However, if they fill that box out or if that form out and check that box, they will now each have some tax withholdings for the year. So at the end of the year, instead of owing $1,800, they're going to get a small refund back.
So we go on to step 3, which is how you claim dependents. You're only going to do this on one W-4 if there's more than one job, and we recommend that you fill it out for the highest paid job that you had. Sometimes spouses don't talk to each other about who listed the dependents, and they'll both list on their W-4 that they had dependents, and this leads to not enough money being withheld. So, for example, if my spouse and I have two children, but we both indicate on this form that we have two children, then the IRS withholds from withhold from your pay, believing that you have a total of four children, and so then you are under withheld. Then our next step is other adjustments, step 4. Section A here is other income. This line is intended for you to report to the IRS that you may have other income that doesn't have withholding. So say, for example, you knew you're going to have income from gambling winnings, but you knew that nothing was held to pay the tax that will eventually be due on that income. You can use this form to let the IRS know that that income is here. It'll be taken into account and the withholding will be done, will be high enough to avoid a debt at tax time. Section B, deductions. At this point, most people use a standard deduction, and if that applies to you, you'll leave this line blank. Otherwise, if you do itemize, you would use the worksheet that's part of this form to figure out your amounts for this field. Then section C is extra withholding. Sometimes you realize part of the way through the year that not enough money is being withheld and you're going to owe money at the end. You can use this field to add an extra set amount of money to your withholding for each pay period. Say you realize halfway through the year that you would owe $1,000 in tax based on your current withholding. Count the number of pay periods you have left and divide 1,000 by that number. It's much easier to make small adjustments earlier rather than to have a big debt in the end. So now at this point, you might be thinking, well, what about the exemptions? Where do I list those? This form looks totally different. And that's true. The form we've been showing you and talking about was new in 2020. If you've never seen it, you should talk to your employer about updating your withholding to use the current calculations in the current process. The IRS has a withholding estimator tool that will walk you through this process. In order to complete it, set aside some time, gather up all your pay stubs for all of your jobs that you have, and if your spouse's as well, if you file jointly. If you have any other income coming in, get that information together as well. It'll lead you through and you can enter in all that there. The more information you have, the better the calculation will be. If you provide all of the details of your situation, the calculator tool will tell you how to fill out the W-4 to make sure that you don't owe. It's a good idea to check your withholding sometime throughout the year or if your income changes. That way you know what to expect at tax time. It's currently early April while we're doing this, and this is the perfect time to be doing this calculation. Enough time in the year has passed that you can have an idea of what your income will be for the year, but there's enough time to make changes so there isn't a big problem later. Sometimes we see people say that their employer messed up and didn't withhold enough and now they owe. As we've said before, usually problems like this are made as a result of a mistake in filling out this W-4 form. Even if there is an error, and even if the error was actually made by your employer, it's your job as the taxpayer to make sure that the withholding is actually getting done and that your taxes get paid at the end of the year. It will be you that pay penalties if they would be applicable if there's an amount due that would subject you to a penalty. So look carefully at your pay stub. Make sure you don't have any nasty surprises at tax time. Sometimes we see people fill these out in order to reduce or avoid withholding taxes, so they get more in their paycheck each week. But it's important to understand that this form does not decide how much tax you end up paying. It only affects how much money is withheld from your paycheck so that you're ready at tax time.
So if you haven't filed your taxes yet, there's still some time that you can get your taxes done for free. This slide here has some free filing resources on it. If you'd like to prepare your taxes yourself, if you go to irs.gov/free file, you can find a list of different vendors that offer free tax preparation software for you to use. Just keep in mind that if you want to use one of those vendors, do not go directly to that vendor's website. You need to start at the link there on the irs.gov free file site to make sure that that tax return is going to be free. Self-serve site as well. If you prefer to get somebody to do your taxes for you, you can get virtual tax preparation by going to getyourrefund.org/United UWCO, which stands for United Way of Central Ohio. They can generally go back 3 to 6 years, and they can do that all completely virtually. You might also still be able to get an in-person tax preparation appointment through the VITA site, which is the Volunteer Income Tax Assistance. They're generally open through mid-April. They will prepare taxes for free if your income is generally less than about $67,000. And you can get an appointment by calling 211 from a 614 area code phone or 614-221-2255 and ask for a free tax appointment. Should you need past year's tax returns done as well, just let them know when you make that appointment so they can get you a long enough appointment. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Kathy, and thank you to Melissa and everyone for watching. If you have a question that we did not answer, again, please leave a comment below and we will answer what we can. You can also visit our website at www.columbuslegalaid.org/tax or www.souls.org/tax and visit our resource center for in-depth videos on a variety of tax-related topics. You can also see this video as well as other videos on our Facebook page, and we look forward to seeing you next time.